Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Captain.
I'm Lynn.
And today we're going to be doing our Gen Con wrap-up video. Now, again, all the links as usual in the description down below for Patreon and Teespring store and BoardGameCaptain.com. Check them out at your leisure. But yeah, this is probably going to be the final video in Gen Con 2021 and the series of videos that we shot for it. We did a bunch of demos and news videos that we shot with different companies while we were at the convention. We did some Gen Con montages of the different days. I mixed a couple days together, so I did less montages, so it wasn't too much of the same. I hope they were different enough that people liked them. We did a haul video where we showed all the stuff we got, and then, of course, here we are for the wrap-up. We're going to talk about our experience with Gen Con 2021. We're going to talk about our experience with each of the individual events and the things that we did, and we're going to talk about like how it was different from other years, because obviously this was the weird year. This was a year where literally the attendance was half of what it normally is. The number of companies showing up was significantly less. A lot of the big companies didn't show up. And there were also a lot less events than normal. So it was a little different. We're going to talk about how it felt. We're going to run through our days and tell you what we did and what it felt like and how it compared to other years. Does that sound about right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so, all right, so day zero. We headed out to the con Wednesday. Wednesday is day zero.
Odin's Day.
Odin's Day, indeed it is. Yes. So we headed out to the con. Now we went out later than normal for one big reason. There was no Gen Con Stink 2021. Usually we go to the Stink every year, so we head out early enough to be able to attend that event, which is, if you're not familiar with the Stink, it's a big mixer party that usually happens on Wednesday.
Yeah, but it's at 5 p.m. We would have been able to attend anyway.
Yeah, but we usually
go out to have lunch with our friends.
That too.
Who weren't. That's why we leave early.
We leave quite early. Yeah, you're right. Because usually we meet up with friends of ours from
overseas.
Yeah, Gen Con friends that we meet every year that come from Scotland, but travel restrictions as they are, we're not able to come this year. So that was another thing that felt really different right off the bat, was we weren't able to do something that we normally do because of travel restrictions. And then also, but it was a little bit later in addition to that, though, because we weren't going to need to do anything till about 6. Because 5 p.m. when we would have gone to the Stink wasn't going to be a thing. So we went, I found the press room. They were doing the press badges at the press room. I got my press badge. Lynn's normal badge had been mailed to us, but they won't mail out the press badges. Press room was nice, but I didn't really spend any time in there because I was with Lynn and Aaron, and only people with press badges could go in there, so they couldn't come in with me. They had some games and stuff in there for people to check out and take pictures of new releases and such, which was kind of cool. But yeah, then we went to the beer tapping. Mm-hmm. On that was really the only event we did on Wednesday. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was really,
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. Because usually we do a couple things on Wednesday, but this year it was just the beer tapping. So Wednesday felt a bit anemic to me. But we met up with our friend Travis, who works for Atlas Games, at the beer tapping, had some beers.
Oh, Wednesday was fine. I mean,
I felt like it wasn't as much as normal.
Because we didn't leave at like the butt crack of dawn to get there by noon.
Okay, but I like doing that.
We got there, I mean, okay, that's fine.
We got there, what, like 3, 4 o'clock?
We got there a little bit before 4, I want to say. And I mean, we got like probably the best parking spot ever.
We actually did. It was bizarrely strange. I think a big part of the really decent parking was probably the less people. Mm-hmm. But also, other than, now the beer tapping felt pretty busy, though not as crowded as normal, but more than I thought it was going to. Like there was a big line for the beer.
It was very crowded. It was almost normally crowded.
It was a little lighter, but it definitely wasn't proportionately lighter. Like, I think a lot of the people who still showed up were like, yeah, we're going to the beer tapping.
Yeah.
Like, it felt pretty busy, which was kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, in the outdoor spaces, I mean, I don't know what was... I think they were checking badges later in the week to go to that little concert thing, because they had that little gate set up.
Yeah.
But I don't think the beer tapping was like a Gen Con. Like, if you just showed up, if you were just happened to be there and had no idea what was going on, you could get a wristband and get beers. They weren't checking badges.
No.
So it could have just been randos too.
So, and then that was it. That was basically it. We hung out with Travis a bit over there, got some dinner, dinner at the food trucks, got some beer, and then we went back to the hotel, took a dip in the pool at the hotel because our hotel had a nice little indoor heated pool, which was lovely.
Not nearly heated enough.
It was lovely.
It was cold.
And then we hit day one, Thursday. So Thursday we spent most of the day in the exhibit hall. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think basically with the exception of going out for lunch to the food trucks again, we were in the exhibit hall the entire day. Mm-hmm. We were walking, and so now the exhibit hall was significantly smaller than normal. There were a lot less companies there. First thing I want to talk about is the entrance to the exhibit hall. So this is one of the downers for me. I thought this was silly. I'll probably be showing video up on screen right now. So I didn't want to get, you want to do a little bit of social distancing as much as you can at these cons. I mean, we did all the things we should have done before going to the con, like getting vaccinated and having masks, etc., to be as safe as possible.
Loading up on hand sanitizer.
Yeah. But, I mean, just in case, we didn't want to be down there if there was going to be like a big crunch of people pushing in. And sure enough, I don't know what they were thinking, but they actually made the situation of the crunch of people, getting in real tight together to get into the hall worse than normal, even though there were half the number of people. Because normally they've got all three doors open and people funnel through the three doors. They cut it down to a single choke point where they were checking badges. Just one, not three, one. And I filmed a bit of it and I was like, this is silly. And I loved that. At one point while I was looking at it, a message came up on a screen next to the thing about social distancing. I was like, yeah, they're doing a great job of promoting social distancing. I mean, what did you think of that?
Yeah, but we weren't down there, so.
No, we weren't in it. We weren't in the mix of that. But I did think it was silly though.
Yeah.
So, and then there on day one was the only time I felt like we hit an aisle where there was like a bit of a log jam, bunch of people and a traffic jam in that aisle.
Yeah, they had a bunch of empty spots, which were either vendors who didn't show up, or I think some of them were just like intentional to make the aisles kind of bigger. But they seem to be in odd places, They weren't where you needed them. They had the extra spaces near booths where we were like, we've never heard of these people before.
Yeah.
Why is it here and not over by, say, Renegade Games?
Who might need some extra space
where you need some
there.
extra space.
Yeah. And then they took a big section of the exhibit hall. I thought they were going to be doing like literally just making a whole lot of extra space so there was room for people to spread out.
I thought the aisles were going to be wider, and they didn't seem wider to me.
Yeah, they took a big section of the exhibit hall and they turned it into like a rest area for the vendors. It also said they could do appointments over there. I didn't have any appointments over with any of them there.
It was like the exhibitor lounge.
Yeah, and I was like, why would you do that when you could have just made all the aisles twice as wide? Basically like skip an aisle between each aisle.
I mean, I assume that the exhibitors have their own lounge other years. They could have just put it in this wherever that is.
Yeah.
I mean, and spread out a bit more.
So yeah, I was a little iffy on that. But that said, the limited number of people did make the exhibit hall feel less crowded. Like I said, there was only one occasion, and it was on Thursday, where I was in a hallway in the exhibit hall where I felt like it was a bit of a traffic jam. Otherwise, actually, you didn't really see that. And you generally had elbow room. You generally had space around you.
Yeah.
So, overall, I would say that was pretty good. And even though there were less vendors, there was still a lot of vendors. A smaller Gen Con is still, big for any other tabletop convention. So, instead of 70,000 people, they had, 35,000 people, which is still huge. That's, still bigger than, say, PAX Unplugged. And then, on top of that, they didn't have the same number of vendors, but they still had so many vendors that it took most of Thursday to really even see them all. Mm-hmm. So, I kind of felt like it was still pretty big. So yeah, I think that's a big positive for me that I still really enjoyed the exhibit hall and I really liked it. Now we didn't do too much else on Thursday. We got a couple things to talk about after the exhibit hall closed. But before I do that, I want to talk about the food trucks and the official pizza and burger of Gen Con. Because I don't remember when we tried each of those. But the food trucks, as usual, were great. All the normal suspects were there, and there were some new food trucks as usual. We had some great food from the food trucks outside this Gen Con. I tried this Korean style corn dog that was like one of the greatest things I've ever eaten. It was definitely one of the greatest fair food type things I've ever eaten. It was phenomenal. It was so good. Plus, we had our normal favorites like the Blue Lagoon was there. And what was the other? What was the Cajun food truck that had the po' boys?
Oh, it was the Chef Dan's.
They were so good, so good.
You know, there's the Blue Lagoon and Taste of the Caribbean.
Both were awesome.
And then we tried the Pierogi Truck for the first time.
That was tasty. And also, what was the British pub food truck?
It was like
the Union Jack, was it?
something like that.
I think it was the Union Jack.
Yeah.
They were quite good too. I had like a big sloppy Joe from them. Really messy, but delicious. A lot of the food was messy. I had to grab some napkins, but
And the cupcake trucks, as always.
oh
We
yeah,
got a couple of cupcakes from the Flying Cupcake.
yeah, they were very tasty. So let's see. So does that about wrap up? Well, we had a couple things we did after Thursday. So we met up with Kevin Kane. We had an appointment to meet up with him. And we met up with him in Hall A, which they have a big area in Hall A for open gaming. So it was good. It was a great place to like grab a table if you want to play a game or do an interview. I found it to be great. So the interview part, if you're doing filming, take that as a good recommended area to check out.
Well, we don't know if it's going to be the same next year.
Well, it usually is though. They usually have open gaming over there.
Right, but Hall A is usually where the AEG Big Game Night is.
Yeah, but that's only one night. But yeah. Anyway, so we're over in Hall A, and we met up with Kevin Kane, who is the designer of both Nexus Man of War and Hex and Toffel, which I've reviewed previously on the channel. Feel free to check out the interview / demos that he did for us, where he showed us a couple of new things he's got coming. Which actually, I think they're already out. One was Evil, which he wanted giving us a review copy of, and the other some new versions of Nexus. He's doing a Viking version, Nexus Ragnarok and stuff. Check it all out in the demo if you want more details about that. But I thought that went great. It was a really good interview / demo session. Went very smoothly. Very much enjoyed it. Also, though, at one point during our rounds in the exhibit hall, and we were looking around, and I'm doing little bits of filming for the montages, and we ran into the booth it was the Indie Game Alliance. So I was looking there because I love independent games. I do a lot of coverage of indie games that other people aren't talking about because I enjoy it, and I think it's great to find those hidden gems. And in the Indie Game Alliance booth, they had the production version, because I have a pre-production version, but they had the production version of Radioactive Bees, which was a game I reviewed and I'm a big fan of. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And one of the heads of the Indie Game Alliance came over to me and started talking to me. And he knew who I was from the channel, and I told him I was a big fan of a lot of the games they represent. And he said they were doing a little thing over at a local pub later on. Did I want to come over and maybe shoot an interview and talk about Indie Game Alliance? And I did, and that video is already up also, and that was a lot of fun. We went. Lynn was getting tired, so she went back to the hotel. But Aaron and I went to the pub. We had a couple drinks and filmed a quick interview with one of the people who runs the Indie Game Alliance. But that was really cool. It was a really cool little thing. I also met some of the designers over there who are represented by Indie Game Alliance, and there were a couple publishers there. That was kind of the point of the event, was publishers were talking to designers. But yeah, that was a pretty cool little thing. I think that wrapped up my Thursday. You went back to the hotel a little early.
Yeah.
You just missed that last thing, but otherwise, that probably pretty much wrapped up all of our Thursdays. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so day 2, Friday. What was the first thing?
That was the First Exposure playtest hall.
Right. So you had decided to do that. Lynn said, I signed us up because the thing is, events were a little...
They were a little thin.
Yeah, they were. They definitely were. The event catalog was not as robust as normal. They had limited it by saying you had to be part of a group to do events? Like, you couldn't just be an individual this year?
That's what I heard. We've never tried to do events, so
Never tried to host them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that being said, without individuals doing it, it was much less than normal. So we wound up trying some kinds of events that we wouldn't normally have done. So we've never done the indie playtest hall before. I'd always first exposure playtest hall.
Yes.
Okay. We'd never done it before.
No.
We'd always seen it in the hall and been like, oh, that looks interesting. But then because this was one of those things that actually was like a negative that turned into a positive, because the event catalog was a bit anemic, we decided to try some new things. And that's how I say it became positive.
I mean, there's like tickets every 2 hours or something. So there was just a massive amount of time slots.
Right. So now... you do want to we learned some things though.
Yes, you do want to get tickets. They're free. They don't cost anything.
But show up early.
And you do want to show up early because it's basically first come, first serve, and ticketed before unticketed. They don't accept generics, which then, that always annoys me when it's like a free event, but then you have to spend $2 if you didn't get tickets beforehand. And they don't require you to give them any generics, but if you show up, you just get a really crappy number if you don't have an event ticket for that time slot.
But also, if some of the designers / publishers who are supposed to be demoing their games there, or play testing their games rather, don't show up, there can be a situation where even though you got a ticket, you may not be guaranteed a spot, which is why you want to show up early. And even if they all do show up, which was not the case, a couple of them didn't show up, but even if they all do show up, showing up early means you're going to get pick of which game you try.
Yeah, because I think we got we're in the mid 30s. Our numbers, we
which is not bad.
You go up to the table, you say, "Hey, I have a ticket for the next time slot," and they give you a number in numerical order.
So they were.
If you don't have a ticket, they give you a different color number, and they get called last.
So beforehand, I went walking around. And I was looking at the games, and there were a few games I was hoping to maybe get in on, and a couple of them got totally filled up really quickly. And we're like, oh, well, there goes that game. Oh, like there was a pirate game. We're like, oh, there goes that pirate game. That's full up. But then there was an interesting looking game that had kind of a not super exciting title. The title was like, do you remember?
Oh, jeez.
It was
3 words.
It was like build, expand.
It was like land, build, expand, because you land your rocket on the planet.
Right.
Then you build something.
Right. So
and then you expand. There was no building.
No land. I don't know.
I think it was land, build, expand, but there wasn't really any building.
So here's the thing, though. The game was awesome. The game was so much fun. And, one of the things... So there were a couple minor things. Apparently, the designer, which I want to give a big shout-out to him because he ran us through a good-sized section of one game. This is meant to be more of a heavier game. So this is the kind of game you're going to play for, like multiple hours. So he ran us through a good-sized section of a game, and it was a lot of fun. He explained it very well to us. We were able to just jump in and play. There were a couple of minor, little things where, this could use a little tweaking, that could use a little tweaking. But he'd obviously been playtesting this for a long time. And I said to him, this is pretty close to being ready. My biggest advice to him was change the name. Mm-hmm. The name is not attention-getting enough. And he kind of agreed. He was like, I think I'm going to turn the name into a subtitle and have, something bigger and more exciting. Mm-hmm. But we hit it off. We were talking a bit, and I told him, I said, when it's ready, I'd love to review it because I had so much fun playing it. I was like, I normally can't guarantee that if I review something, it's going to be a positive review. But having already tried this, I'm like, I'm going to like this game. I know I'm going to like this game. So I might wind up reviewing it in the future, and if I do, I'll reference it in the review and tutorial that it was that game that we had tried at the first exposure playtest hall. So what was next on, because that was a great experience, but what was next on Friday?
Oh, and then the Soulforge Fusion.
No, was that right after, or did we have a break between
there was a break. It was at 2 p.m.
Okay, so I think, what I think we did after that was when we got lunch, and we went back in the exhibit hall for a little bit before going to Soulforge Fusion. So then what happened was, Justin Gary. I had an appointment with Justin Gary. He's one of the two designers for the new game, the upcoming game, Soulforge Fusion. He's also, of course, the designer of Ascension, the one of the seminal deck building games in gaming history. And he had the appointment. We went to his hotel room, and he ran me through a big demo and full game of Soulforge Fusion, which was amazing. Video is up on the channel if you want to check that out, but I had a blast doing that. And then afterwards, he shot a couple of really quick videos with us where he gave us like elevator pitches on news for upcoming things that are coming, both from his company, Stoneblade Entertainment, and also a game that he designed for Brotherwise Games. So all that should be up on the channel at this point, so check those out. One is going to be like news from Stoneblade Entertainment. The other one was like Night of the Ninja was the game. So it was kind of like an elevator pitch for Night of the Ninja and why you should be interested in it if you like the mechanics that it uses. But that whole experience with him was fantastic. He was great to film with, absolutely awesome, had a great sense of humor. And I really enjoyed playing Soulforge Fusion with him a lot. I would demo any game he wanted to demo with me, and to be named later in the future. Anytime he wanted us to film content with him, he was a joy for that event. Absolutely. What were your thoughts on that whole experience?
I slept terribly the night before, so I was really sleepy, and I just sat on the couch and tried not to fall asleep.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair. You weren't in on the game.
I don't know if I really succeeded. I may have dozed off at one point.
Well, you didn't snore, so that was good. The camera did not pick up your snores. What was next on Friday?
Well, then it was AEG all the way at 8 p.m.
Right. So after that, I think we went back into the exhibit hall some more. We had some dinner. Again, everything was out of the food trucks the whole time. The lines in the food trucks were not as bad as normal. No, they weren't. Because of the lower number of people. They were
Island Noodles still had an obnoxiously long line, but they're
so fast.
They sell one thing. It's noodles.
Yeah.
And they just slam it out.
So most of the times we went out to get food, the lines weren't bad. We were able to get there was one time I waited on a fairly long line, but it went quick. Those people at the food trucks, and big shout out to all the food truck workers. They were slamming away, absolutely slamming away. Another food truck I want to give a shout out to is the Pretzelwagen, who has their big pretzel bun. Their Pretzelwagen. They have the big pretzel bun sandwiches. I had the Luke Skywalker, which was spicy and delicious, really good sandwich. So we went to the AG game night.
Yeah. That was over at the Marriott. Or was it the JW? It was one of the Marriotts.
It was weird. Cause
it was the JW. I think it was the really far one.
Yeah, it wasn't where it normally is.
Yeah, it was just like in one of their event halls in the basement.
So I did feel the hall from AEG Game Night was a little better than it's been in recent years, because they had those two extra big games where they're like, you get to pick which one you want, which was kind of cool. But the actual experience wasn't as up to snuff as AG Game Night has been in the past.
I'm sick. Like, stop pushing Tiny Towns on me.
Yeah,
I don't like it. I don't want to play it.
See, I like Tiny Towns. I do. Swear. However,
2 years in a row.
Yeah. Being like, last year there was no.
Well, yes, but it's
two Gen Cons in a row.
Fine, whatever.
Okay.
It's semantics at this point.
Okay.
But 2 years ago, when Tiny Towns premiered, they had the huge Tiny Towns. Like, everyone's playing the largest game of Tiny Towns. Woo! And I was like, I played the game. I didn't like it. And then this year they did the same thing.
They did. It was a complete repeat of what they had done, only because Tiny Towns had been released in 2019. When they did it in 2019, it was more exciting and more interesting that they were doing that. When they did it in 2021, it was like, we've already done this big Tiny Towns game thing.
Their excuse was that some sort of expansion was supposed to be out.
But it didn't even come out.
And it didn't. And the thing was, it was supposed to be Tiny Towns with the expansion, so it was going to be new and different.
But the expansion didn't come out.
I still probably would have hated it. But the expansion wasn't there, so it was literally just Tiny Towns again.
And then, in the past, they've done at AG Game Nights in the past. I think this changed in 2019 actually. So I think it's the last two AG Game Nights has been this way. But in the past, before that, they've usually separated out the area for the AG Game Nights. Been like, we're playing this game over here and that game over there and that game over there. You go sit down, you play a game, you get up, you move to another area, you sit down, play a game. And we used to like that because we would run into multiple people through the event that we know and be like, hey, we'll play the next game with you. We'll go get a game. Whereas now they're like, sit down, stay where you are. We're going to play exactly 2 games. And these are the games we're playing. It doesn't matter where you are. We're just playing these games. And I do not like this format as much. I used to prefer walking around and being like, oh, we're going to get a game of that. That looked interesting. Now you're just playing these games.
I could see how it's easier to run. It's easier on the volunteers to do it this way because previously, there would be the volunteers would stand at the end of the table and be like, I need 2 people, and I could see how this is easier for them. But it's not as fun and not as exciting, not as personable.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Definitely. No,
I'm considering maybe just not even doing it again.
Well, and especially so the 2 games we did were 10 and what was the other one?
Whirling Witchcraft.
Rolling Witchcraft. So Whirling Witchcraft was pretty fun. 10 was okay. Neither of which were wow factors.
Yeah, I've been disappointed in the AEG game night for a couple of years where.
Yeah, and it used to be like one of our like greatest legendary events that we loved to do every year, and now we're kind of getting to the point where we're like, maybe we could skip it. Yeah. I don't know.
And well, another thing that the dude said that next year is like the 10th anniversary of Smash Up or something.
The game, I'm feeling very played out on Smash Up at this point.
He was like, they're gonna have like big surprise, and they're gonna do this whole to do. So I'm guessing next year is gonna be all Smash Up, and I mean Smash Up's fine, but I'm not super into it, and I don't want.
And we played Smash Up a ridiculous amount of times. It's kind of played out at this point. They're really resting on their laurels with the constant Smash Up expansions. I mean, I get why companies do this, why they either just keep retheming games that are evergreens or keep putting out expansions for games that are evergreens. But it feels to me like when they do that, they're resting on their laurels, especially when a lot of their newer games are just nowhere near as innovative or interesting. Like Smash Up was super innovative when it first came out, but it's been out for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Almost. Next year it'll be 10 years. But yeah, it's like they really come up with your next Smash Up. Stop just relying on Smash Up expansions to carry the company. I don't know. I don't know. We may or may not do AEG Game Night next year. We'll see. But yeah, I was a little disappointed in how that went.
I think also they've stopped like making what you get a secret. Like the past couple years, they just tell you like these are the games you're getting, and there are like 1 or 2 extras. Like there's a little game in the bag, and then you got to pick a bigger game.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like it's always like these are the games we're playing, and you're like okay.
Yeah, well, and then the last thing I wanted to say, this is my last gripe on AEG Game Night. I don't want to harp on it too much because I do like AEG as a company. I've enjoyed quite a few things they have put out, so I don't want to really trash on them as much as I am, but I didn't enjoy this.
Well, you're getting value for your money.
You are.
It's just it might not be a thing that you're into. Like I wouldn't have bought these games myself. So how much value am I really getting?
So but the last thing I wanted to say is the event's supposed to go on for like 4 hours, and they literally, other than the big game of Tiny Towns, they literally gave you 2 lightweight games to play for 4 hours. 2 lightweight games.
Yeah.
we played each of them once. Lynn was like, I do not like either of these enough to play a second time. And what do you do for the other 3 hours? And
we sat there on our phones.
Yeah, because we got to wait for the raffles to see if we won anything.
We didn't.
But the thing is, and I said this to the guy, the volunteer. I was talking to the volunteer a bit, and I was like, man, they really should have put in a heavier game for people to play. Like, because they have a lot of great heavier games, middleweight and heavy-ish middleweights. Like, for instance, they could have put in Space Base out there and had everybody play Space Base when you're done with the 2 new lighter games. And that would have been great. I would have loved to play a big Space Base game for a couple of hours. I don't know why they just threw out 2 lightweight games. But yeah, I was a little disappointed in AEG Game Night. I did not have as much of a good time at it as I normally do. And I'm with you on when you were like, yeah, maybe we don't need to do this again next time. But I think that wrapped up our Friday, right?
Yes.
Okay, Saturday, day 3.
We had the Czech games.
Was that the first thing?
Yes.
What time was that?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. So we went to Czech Games Edition. They had their own room, as they normally do, but it was a bigger room than normal. They had a huge room. They had their store at one end, which they always do their store in their own room rather than the exhibit hall. And then they had a huge amount of play space and had a great area set up. And a couple of their employees were doing demos for people who had appointments to go check out demos. So we went and we worked with Rachel, who ran me through a demo of the new edition of a Galaxy Trucker, which is already up, so you can check that out. And then she also filmed another video with us doing discussing upcoming releases, some expansions, etc. So check that out. That's gonna be like news from CGE, from Gen Con 2021, something like that. It's gonna be on the channel. If you look through our recent videos, it's there. If you want to check out some interesting news about upcoming things, even an app for one of their games. So that was really cool. I thought that was a very cool experience. I had a bit of a glitch with one of my memory cards while I was trying to film the second video. There was a bit of a comedy of errors. So I have backup memory cards. My first memory card was having a formatting issue and stopped wanting to record. It recorded the demo fine, but then wouldn't record the news video. So I had to swap out the memory card. It was a minor issue, but it was just funny, and I thought it was cool to reference. And this is why, big advice to you if you're a content creator, backups. Have backup plans. So I bring multiple memory cards with me. I brought 3, and the reason was because if one goes bad like that happened, I can just open up the camera and swap it out, which is what I did. So, but it all seemed to download to the computer fine, and I edited it all fine. So it what it recorded was good. It just wouldn't work for me after that. So what did we do after CGE? Oh, and did you have anything you wanted to talk about with CGE? I know you didn't.
No, I just kind of stood there.
Well, I was gonna say it was mostly me and Rachel doing the filming. So
and then we had a big break.
Rachel and I.
Big break at time, which I'm guessing probably 8. And at 1 p.m. we had the Stardate Unknown.
Oh yeah, so we went back. Now we've done role playing games with Stardate Unknown repeatedly. They're a group. This gentleman, he runs these great Savage Worlds role playing games every Gen Con. We've done like 3 of them at this point. He did a repeat of one he had previously done because he didn't wind up having time to do a new one. But Lynn and Aaron didn't really remember it, so I pretended not to remember it, and we just ran through it. I remembered the whole thing. So I was a little disappointed, but I saw they were having fun, so I was like, it's cool. But I was a little disappointed because I remembered all the twists and turns, so I just was like, okay. You guys were like, oh, I don't remember this.
It was like when we got on the one with the containers on the floaty platforms, like that room was familiar to me.
Yeah.
But I didn't know why.
It's because you'd played it before.
So it was
But it was still fun. And we did some things differently than we did last time. Which that I started to get interesting because we had people in the group who had not played it last time. And they were making some different decisions. And I was like, oh, let's run with this because this is not what we did last time.
I'm sure I made different decisions because I didn't remember anything.
Because you didn't remember anything. And you played. They also had different characters available. So I got to be Data, and you got to be Wesley Crusher.
I was mainly because everyone was like
ragging.
Everyone was like, "Oh, Wesley's so crappy," and just me being contrary. I was like, "I'm gonna be Wesley because everyone hates him." I had a really good shooting and piloting though.
You did.
So Wesley kicked ass.
Yeah, he actually.
Just saying, I don't know why everyone hates him.
He did pretty well. So that was fun. And then what else did we have?
That was it.
That was it for Saturday?
Yeah.
So
that was it for the stuff we had
planned.
Scheduled.
I think we went back to the exhibit hall a little bit, but I think we actually ended things kind of early on Saturday, if I remember correctly.
No, there was 2 days where I went back to the hotel by myself.
That's right.
So I don't know what you did.
This was the night.
Oh, you went back to Hall A.
Yeah, we did. So Aaron and I, Lynn went back early. She was getting tired. Aaron and I weren't ready to go back yet. And at some point, I think it was on day 1, I had seen the booth where they were showing off a really cool board game that it just looked gorgeous, and a very interesting looking theme. It was called Windward. And I'd given them my card, and I was like, if you guys want me to review it, I would love to review it. It looks really cool. Let me know. This is my channel, yada, yada, yada. I say my card, it's really a die. And later, Aaron and I went to the Hall A, where you have the ability, people, and we've never really done this before, but people who have picked up games and want to try them out, they can go to the organization table there, pick up an orange cone, put the orange cone out to say, like, I need players, and you go by and you play the game with them. So there were a dad and his son were setting up the game, and we came over and like, oh, you're doing Windward. We want to check this out. Do you already know how to play? And they're like, oh yeah, we played through a full demo, and we've also read through the rules, and we're ready to go if you guys want to play with us. So Aaron and I played the game with them. It was awesome. We had a great time. I managed to come in second place, which I felt was really good for my first time playing. And then the next day on Sunday, I went back and bought a copy. I was like, you know what? I just want a copy for my collection, whether or not they want me to review it or not. I may not get to review it, but if at some time they decide to send me a review copy, I'm going to definitely just give it away. I'll do a review tutorial and giveaway and give it away to share the wealth. But I definitely wanted a copy for myself. So the short version is I did really enjoy that game. Windward was really cool. And then I think that would be it for Saturday. And then day 4, Sunday.
We just went back in the exhibit hall.
Yes, we did a lot of exhibit hall. I went around. A lot of the companies will often tell you if you are a content creator and you're looking for review copies, the day to do it at conventions is Sunday. And that's regardless of convention. And the reason is, generally speaking, they would rather sell the copies than anything else, which of course is understandable. But as Sunday comes around, if they've still got a bunch of stock that they're not going to sell, they would rather write it off their taxes and give a review copy to a reviewer than have to pay to ship it back. So big advice to you if you're a content creator, the day to ask for review copies is Sunday. That is the day. So I actually wound up getting a bunch of review copies on Sunday with people who still had stacks of games left, and they're like, yeah, sure, here, take this. Let me just write down what channel I'm giving it to. And when they're doing that, that's because they're going to write it off their taxes. So yeah, I got a bunch of review copies. It was really cool. Also bought my copy of Windward. Continue to go around and just enjoy the exhibit.
That's when I bought the 3 puzzles.
Yes.
The 3 puzzles that make a big panorama.
Those from Kesco.
Because I was like waffling about them all weekend.
Yes.
And
you were.
The dude kept saying that he only had like one of each left. And I was like, well, if they're still there on Sunday, which
they were. It was weird.
Well, I'm pretty sure he was just telling everyone.
Oh, was he fibbing?
I've worked retail. I know.
Yeah. They were very nice, though. People at Kesco were very nice. They also gave us a review copy of Battle Bosses. Check out our haul from Gen Con 2021 video to see all the stuff we got. We talk about all the games and puzzles, etc. So we did some walking around. We left a bit early though. We went out of the exhibit hall around lunchtime to get lunch before heading back, and that was it. Even though it's still open till 4, we had no events. Also though, because of the pushed back date for Gen Con, it was taking place when Sunday there was a Colts football game going on, and there were a bunch of those football cosplayers with the most unoriginal costumes ever were like swarming over the food truck area. And they're way rowdier and less...
Walking through the exhibit hall without masks on.
They're way rowdier and less polite than the normal cosplayers, I have to say. And they just don't know how to behave in public in general. So that was a little bit of a downside for me. Because there were like people like yelling at each other at the top of their lungs, and some people who were very upset that they couldn't get into the exhibit hall for free because, like, oh, let's go check out the board games. And be like, oh, you don't have a pass. Like, argh! Go away.
That was my favorite. The people who couldn't get into the exhibit hall.
It's like, go away. Just go away. I mean, I get they had their own event going on. It was next door and all because I like football, don't get me wrong. But like I like football, like I'll watch it at home and such. The people who like show up in public and act crazy and all is not my thing. So, but anyway, other than that, I would say Sunday was still pretty darn good. Got to have a lot of fun in the exhibit hall. Again, it's the short day because then we headed back and we came back home. So full takeaways about the event in total. What are your thoughts on the weird Gen Con? Gen Con 2021, the smaller Gen Con.
I liked it more.
More than normal?
Because there was less people.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I didn't get like, usually I get like angry walking around the exhibit hall and start like elbowing people, and I didn't have to do that.
Well, because you get a bit of an anxiety about the crowds.
Yeah.
And so it was less crowded. So it didn't bother your anxiety as much.
No, I didn't end up like, cursing under my breath while trying to get through the aisle.
Well, because usually there's multiple traffic jams. And we only had one the whole weekend.
Sometimes cursing loudly.
We only had one traffic jam the whole weekend, which was not bad at all. It happened early too, though, so I was like, "Oh man, we're still gonna have this." But then the rest of the weekend, it was like, "No, it's fine."
I think it was just Thursday was when most people go in there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, because a lot of people like to get in and see what's there before it sells out. Though it didn't look like as much really sold out because of there being far less people there. There were a lot of companies on Sunday when I walked around who still had a ton of stock and were very wanting to give away review copies. So I was like, "Oh, here's my channel," and they're like, "Here, take a copy," and I was like, "Okay, great." or which game would you like to review? And I was like, "That one." And it was really good. I very much appreciated that there was a fair amount, because generally Gen Con is not usually a good convention to get a lot of review copies because they do sell out of a lot of the new stuff. So usually, they're like, come back on Sunday, and then you come back on Sunday and it's all sold out. So I usually have better luck in smaller conventions. And because it was smaller this year, I wound up having better luck for Gen Con. So actually it was really good for me to get review copies. I did think, though, so that's some positives right there on it being less crowded. But I did feel like some of their weird regulations were so odd. Like, why were they choke pointing every entrance to the exhibit hall? Like, they put ropes up.
And they had like 3 people checking badges. Like, it was like you went through like a gauntlet of people. Like, I got past one person.
And then there's another person.
What? Why? Okay.
Yeah, and then like
I think one of those people were checking that you were wearing a mask properly, but you still didn't need a third person after that.
Yeah, they made a tiny little entrance that at the most 2 people could go through at once. And they had 2 people there checking badges. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. But then they had a third person behind them who's like jumping on people. And she was like, at least the first time we went through. Mm-hmm. Later, that I think maybe somebody had to talk to her. I don't know, because she was being crazy. Like, it was weird. Like, when they first opened up the exhibit hall, the entrance we went through, she was like jumping at people, and we're like, we just showed the badge to them. Like, what?
I don't know.
What's going on? So let's see your badge. Arr! And we're like, oh, okay. She was like this crazy old lady. It was nuts. Like, she was like literally like she was like pouncing. Like, I really felt like she was like pouncing on you. But I saw her later in the convention. She had calmed down. I don't know if she realized she was being overly zealous, or if somebody had to talk to her and was like, you should have some chamomile and chill out.
Chamomile tastes awful. Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, but old people like the chamomile. I don't know. So, but yeah, so that was a little weird, especially because when the exhibit halls were first opening each day, there still were crowds of people gathering around. They weren't nowhere near as big as normal, but there were still crowds of people gathering around wanting to go in, because they're like, oh, the exhibit hall opens at 10 and we're 1:45. What else are we going to do? So they go and wait outside the exhibit hall, and you've got the big freaking television screen saying social distance, stay 6 feet apart, and then they make everybody go through this tiny little entrance, which was smaller than the actual entrances of the 3 doors. So that was kind of silly. That was probably my biggest downside of the whole convention. I just thought that whole thing was silly. Mm-hmm. So actually, if this is my biggest downside, it wasn't bad. Overall, I thought it was very enjoyable. I got to talk to a lot of the different companies. I got to say hi to a lot of people I haven't seen in like 2 years, because we call them friends, but they're Gen Con friends. They're people we only see when we get to go to Gen Con, really. But I have friends of a lot of the different game companies, and I love to go say hi to them, and I got to see a lot of them. And that was really, really great, especially, again, because I hadn't seen them in 2 years. So anything else, any other takeaways for you for Gen Con?
No.
It
felt a lot more chill, which I liked.
Yeah.
I liked being able to go back to the hotel and have enough time and have the energy to, like, take a shower and just, like, just kind of like unwind rather than just like face plant into the bed because I'm exhausted.
Yeah. So yeah, it didn't feel like. Of course, this is obviously everyone's referring to this as the weird Gen Con. It didn't actually feel weird. What it felt was lighter. It felt like a smaller convention. It still felt like Gen Con, but it felt like Gen Con probably from a long time ago before they got as huge as they normally are. Because it was about half the size. So, yeah, everybody had to wear a mask, and that was different. But at this point, we're all kind of getting used to that.
Yeah,
Because you're wearing it in most stores.
right.
So, so that was a little different having to wear the mask. But other than that, the only other thing was that it was smaller. There were less people, less companies, and less events. So it didn't really feel weird. Like I say, it just felt lighter, more laid back, and a smaller event in general.
Yeah.
Would you agree to that?
Yeah.
But it still felt like Gen Con, though.
Yeah.
It just, yeah, that was it. So, yeah, I was wondering if it was going to be a lot weirder, if there were going to be strange things going on, strange rules, but no, it was, yeah, it was just Gen Con, but smaller. That was really it. So, yeah, if you didn't get to go, that's what you missed. You missed a lighter, more elbow room, more breathing space sort of Gen Con with half the number of people and maybe 2/3 the number of vendors, basically. Because it wasn't half the number of vendors. There still were a good number of vendors.
Yeah, there was a lot of first-time exhibitors.
Yes. A lot of the big ones weren't there. Like, there was no Paizo. There was no, which was really big, there was no either Asmodee or any of their subsidiaries, which meant no Fantasy Flight, no Z-Man Games. So, with Asmodee gone, most of the biggest game companies, which are all under their umbrella at this point, weren't there. And that was a huge difference. So you had a ton of tiny little boutique companies that had one or two games. And there were tons of booths where there was just one game. It felt like Entrepreneur's Alley had taken over half of the hall, But yeah, I thought that was fine. Actually, because I really like seeing a lot of those companies. And I got to see a lot of games that I wouldn't probably have found out about it if it wasn't for how light the Gen Con, booking for their exhibit hall was. So, yeah. So that's everything. Let us know what you think. Comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. Share it on all social media. And if you're not already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.